everybody, and welcome to week 5 of our Dangerous Prayers online Bible study. My name is Kendra, and I am the manager of online Bible studies, but really all that means is I get to do the study right alongside you, which is one of my favorite parts of my job. And I am joined by a guy you have seen for the past 5 weeks. He is author and Pastor Craig Groeschel, author of Dangerous Prayers. Happy to sit with you, Craig.
Hey, thank you, Kendra, and welcome back for another week.
Yes, we are very excited because we are moving in to another prayer that you cover in Dangerous Prayers, and it is on the topic of send me.
Yes.
Now, before we get into a little bit about me and the prayer that I pray that deals with that, a lot of people might hear send me and think if they pray that, it's going to take them away from their home and maybe to a third world country, or maybe go across America or wherever they may be. So what do you say about the prayer send me and if somebody thinks like that?
Well, I would say if you pray send me, that God could send you to a third world country or something like that. More likely, God will give you eyes to see something right in front of you or heart for some people around you. And one of the things, Kendra, I think is always interesting is sometimes people view their workplace or their profession as being less spiritual than maybe someone who's a pastor or a worship leader or something. And I always try to tell them, not only is that not less spiritual, but in many ways, you've got a far bigger opportunity to impact lives all the time. And when you pray, send me, I would brace yourself because chances are you might end up with a heart for something that you didn't before. You'll probably find yourself in a place where you feel a little bit uncomfortable, meaning like, I'm not sure I have what it takes to get this message across, or I might not feel good enough. And I think one of the reasons is because God's going to put you in a place where you really have to depend on Him. And you may not have to pack your bags to wherever He sends you. Chances are there'll be something much closer and within reach. But whether you have to pack your bags or you don't, I would get ready to experience a new level of faith and an opportunity to be obedient to a calling you may not have realized otherwise.
Yeah, so we all have to gear up in case that is the case.
Get ready, yeah.
Yes, so my prayer has to deal with send me. And as I was thinking about what I could talk with you about, it took me back to when I was 22. I was fresh out of college, and it was 2014. I had a job that I wasn't the best at. I didn't know if I belonged there per se. And every day to and from work, I would cry in the car and talk to God about there's no way this is what you have for me. There's no way I'm supposed to be here. There's no way I'm supposed to do this. This is not what I thought my life would look like. And you could say I was having what I consider a quarter life crisis. And I want to talk to anybody right now where God can use you wherever you are, no matter what job you have. And I realize that now, looking back at this job, I'm like, it prepped me for where I am. So I'm very grateful for it. But I remember just crying, and I was so confused on why God had me where He did. And you wrote something in your book that really resonated with me, and that is, send me, Lord, use me. And that's exactly what I wanted. I desperately wanted that. And I think I was ready for the send. I didn't know what that looked like, but I wasn't ready for the change in which came with it. And I think, like you said, sometimes it can make you uncomfortable, and you need to be ready for whatever that may look like. That prayer led me to move from Ohio, where I'm originally from, to North Carolina. It had me move without an offer letter for a job.
Wow.
I wasn't sure if I got the job at Proverbs yet. And it not only did I gain a lot from it, but there was a lot of change that came with it. I lost friendships over it. I lost comfort and familiarity. It removed me from the proximity of family. But it gave me other relationships. It gave me a new comfort for the city in which I was in. It gave me a newfound purpose. But sometimes things, the hardest things require removal. And I think that was the hardest part of it. So in chapter 3.2, you say, His call usually requires you to surrender your own plans and preferences and go where He tells you, when He tells you, how He tells you, to meet who He tells you, and to do what He tells you. And what I find so interesting about that quote that you put is you have to surrender your own plans. So you talked to Melissa about you can't necessarily go into it like this. Eventually, you have to be open palm. And that's exactly what I had to do. And so what do you say to somebody who needs to surrender their own plans, or what advice do you have for somebody on how to do that?
Well, I think one of our biggest desires is to kind of go to God and have Him do what we want.
Mm-hmm. Oh, easy.
And so here's my prayer list with the 15 things I want you to do.
Right.
And I would say God does care about all the details of your life. But occasionally, rather than going to Him with your wish list, maybe you go to Him with a blank piece of paper and say, what would you like of me? And I think that's one of the dangerous things about prayer is so often we think it's me talking.
Right.
But if I stand here and we're supposed to have a conversation and I talk the whole time and I don't ever listen to you, that's not really a conversation.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to go before God with that posture of I want to listen as well as I want to speak. And so often we tend to think we know either what He wants, or we tend to attribute what we want to being His will.
Yeah.
And so often He has something totally and completely different, like in your case. And it does, to go to that new place and to have that new kind of impact, it does mean often letting go of everything that is comfortable to you, everything that makes you feel secure, everything that's known. And because to take that step of faith is what it is. And it is a step of faith. And without faith, it's impossible to please God.
Right. And I think the thing that has shocked me the most as I reflected on that time preparing for this is not only did I give things up right away, right as I was driving down from Ohio to North Carolina, but 4 years later, there's still things that I'm having to give up in order to fully step into the position at Proverbs or other relationships that I have. Like I just had to have a friendship breakup, if you will, with one of my nearest and dearest friends of all time. And I never thought that friendship would end. I felt very secure in that friendship. But I saw that it was toxic and it was part of who I used to be. And I needed to break it off. But I think that's the hardest part of Send Me is you can step out in faith, but it doesn't mean that God's going to stop there. There's going to be other things and little steps of obedience to get you to where you need to go.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes the Send Me, you might not actually go anywhere. Like I wish Amy, my wife, could talk to you because she's got so much wisdom. But we raised and are still raising 6 kids together. And in the early years, I could tell she had a real Send Me heart. Like, I want to go out and do something.
Yeah.
And her assignment really was these children. And so while she had a lot more to offer in her mind, that was her assignment. And so she had to step into it and really embrace it. Once they were a little bit older, suddenly she had this massive burden for marginalized women. And it was almost a burden she didn't want. It was like, it was so heavy, so strong that she couldn't not deal with it. And so it took her on a real faith journey of doing things she'd never done before, starting a nonprofit, finding a team, opening up what started as one little home and has now grown to multiple homes and a full-blown staff. But it was like in the early years, I wanted to be sent, and I'm now, raising kids.
Right.
And the other years later on, it's like I wasn't asking for this, but now I'm being sent, and it led her on this just real journey. And I think the bottom line is that when you're obedient to where God's planting you and take that step of faith, you can, kind of like you ending a friendship's really difficult. Redefining it, but stepping into, I like what you said, is that's not who I am anymore. It's not, that's a part of my past. And I think we can all say that in our current moment of that I'm different now because I'm being conformed to the image of Christ.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Craig, thank you so much for speaking into the prayer of Send Me. I know we have another week with all of you, and then next week you're going to be back with Lysa TerKeurst and Melissa.
Thank you for saying yes, or you wouldn't be here interviewing, and you could be back somewhere else.
You're right, we would have never had this opportunity to chat, so look at that, it worked out.
And for you too, don't be afraid. Take the step of faith. If there's a stirring, you might not feel equipped.
Right.
You're not going to know all the details. I always say this, that if God gave you all the details, you'd probably run for the hills.
Absolutely.
So you don't need the
true.
details. You just need to take the next obedient step. And if you pray, Send Me, He will. Get ready. You may have to pack your bags, you may not, but you will have to take a step of faith.
That's great. And you have been here to where we've ended each video with our tagline. So do you want to see if you can help?
I'll start out, yes.
All right. When you know the truth,
and when you live the truth,
it changes
everything.
That was great. Great job. All right, everybody, have a wonderful week.
Hello, everyone. I'm Melissa Taylor from Proverbs 31 Ministries, and It seems like we just started yesterday, and here we are in our final week of Dangerous Prayers.
I don't want it to end.
I don't either.
Well, good thing
You know?
your dangerous prayers don't have to
They
end.
don't, don't. I always say, just because the book is closed, that's only the beginning.
Right.
That's truly the beginning of the journey. And Pastor Craig and Lisa, we started this journey with you, and so we wanted to end it with you today. And so thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Pastor Craig. We
thank you,
have
guys.
gleaned so much wisdom from you, and I think you've helped break us out of our tired, typical patterns of what we thought prayer was and opened our eyes to all that it can be. So thank you for that.
You. So excited.
I want to dive right into a quote that I marked from the end of the book that kind of stepped on my toes, but in a good way.
Good.
So you were bossing me around, but I'm not going to be bitter about it.
Well, the title of the chapter is Disturbing.
I
Me,
know,
Lord. So,
right?
Yeah.
Well, right there from the right from the title chapter, I can understand why this is called a dangerous prayer. Lord, disturb me.
Right.
And I was like, well, I don't think I want to pray that. But then this is how the chapter opens on page 155. What we pray about is important, but not only is it important, it's also revealing. And I found myself pulling my toes back at that point going, ouch, that steps on my toes. And then you go on to say, the content of our prayers tells us more about us and our relationship with God than most people might imagine. What we pray for reflects what we believe about God. If most of our prayers are for ourselves or for what matters to us, then the content of our prayers communicates that we believe deep down that God exists primarily for us. Okay, preach to me.
Well, if an interesting thought would be to maybe take like a prayer inventory. And so what you could do is you could think about over the last 7 days, let's say a week or so, let's just pretend like everything you asked God to do, he did and said, yes. So whatever you're praying for, he did. Then you can ask yourself, what would be different in the world today?
What would be different in the world, not just in my world?
No, in the world today. And so for some of us, there are times, and I hate to admit this, but there are times like if God said yes to everything I prayed for in a week, there would be nothing different because I didn't pray, which is sad to admit, but unfortunately true. For other people, they might say, well, I would have gotten raised and my best friend's cancer would have been healed and my kid would be behaving or something. And there would be some things different, but it would kind of be in a very small, self-centered world and not beyond that. My wife, Amy, is one of the best prayer warriors I know, and I'm often convicted by what she's praying for that I'm not. And she's praying for a lot bigger things than just in our little orbit. And I think that's a good exercise because what the quote that I think it really, hopefully would resonate with people is what we pray about reflects what we believe about God. And if it's all my prayer list, my own desires, then a lot of times we do believe God exists really to give me what I want. And that's a really distorted view and kind of an inverted view of what prayer would be like. Instead of just saying, you're here to serve my wishes, instead we want to do is we want to go to God with more of a truly communicative heart, that we're in a relationship and it's not just me telling you here's what I want, but it's many times saying, God, what do you want from me? What do you want to show me? What do you want to direct me to do? And when we do pray, let's take it beyond just kind of the us for no more type prayers, and move it toward praying about things that impact a lot of people beyond our little circles.
And so how do you decide what to pray about beyond your circle? Because sometimes that could feel like it's putting all this pressure on me. It's like, oh, gracious, when I got to pray for the orphans and I've got to pray for, causes that are beyond what I even really understand. And then there's government and then there's people. I mean, it just seems like I could be praying 24/7. So what is your like prompt, or what how do you know what you are going to pray about today beyond your scope?
Let me give you a relatively long answer to that. I'll keep it as short as I can. One thing I would do is I would just really recommend that you keep if you can, some type of prayer journal. So you're typing on your phone, and so you know who you're praying what you're praying for. And then what's going to happen is if you have that, you'll revisit it over time and realize, oh wow, that was answered in a way that I didn't expect. And so it keeps your prayers front and center. That's one thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say is when you don't know what to pray for, one thing I'll often do is say, God, what do you want me to pray for? And as simple as this. what I'll do, this is really, really simple, is I'll say, I want to pray for some people today. Bring to my mind who to pray for. And I'll breathe in, and a name will come to my mind, and I'll just kind of breathe out and say the name. And it might be Lysa. And then I'll breathe in again, and I might say, okay, Art. And then what happens is that every breath in, there's never a time where a name doesn't come to mind. And I wouldn't be praying for you a 5-minute prayer, but I am taking you before God in prayer. And then if we bump into each other a week later, I might say, oh, by the way, God brought you to mind last week and I prayed for you. And it wasn't a big prayer, but it was a prayer. And so I really feel like that God's bringing people to my heart. Then on the kind of the world issues, what I would say is this, is I would say wherever you have kind of like a burden, because there's certain things about the world that upset you more in a good way than it would, and there are certain things that upset me more, and I kind of have a personal divine angst about something. I would just say, don't walk away from that, press into that pain.
Wow.
And consistently expose yourself to the things that disturb you. And I know some of you could relate to this. You go on a mission trip and you're like going, my life will never be the same after what I've seen. And then you come back and 7 days later, my fingernail broke and my shoes are stuffed up my kid, and you forget almost all about it. And so whatever it is that disturbs you, press into that. And that can become like a prayer passion for you. I hope you have something like that. I hope there's something beyond your little world that does wreck you in the best sort of way. You could pray nonstop about global problems, and I don't think that's necessarily what God wants for the majority of us, because you do have an ongoing relationships to care about and things to do. But I do think that having your heart break for something that breaks the heart of God, where you regularly intercede on behalf of somebody else, it takes us out of a self-centered Christianity and puts us into we serve a global God who cares about all the people of the world, and that's good for our souls.
I remember when this was about 17, 18, 19, 20 years ago. I don't know, something like that.
You're adding years as you go.
I know. Well, because I keep getting older. I'm like, can I just park at one age, please, and stay that way? So, but 2 decades ago, approximately.
There you go.
I remember vividly the day that we went to go hear the Liberian Boys a cappella choir, and it was supposed to just be a cultural event. I was homeschooling my kids at the time, and I thought to myself, this is what the really good homeschool moms do, so I've got to have at least one of those activities. So we went, and I really knew the Lord was stirring my heart to pursue finding out more information about these boys. And I remember so distinctly being so shocked as we went through this process at how unaware I had been for so long about the orphan problem of the world, because it felt like the orphan problem is so big and I am so small.
Right.
So there's no way that I could be part of the solution for that. And yet, when that big out there problem became 2 boys that were standing in front of me, it was no longer considered a world problem. It was now an opportunity for me to become a difference maker. And so I think maybe that's the way that it is, just like you were saying, what do you have a passion about? And maybe some people will say, well, I don't know that I really have a passion for any kind of world issue or any kind of big issue or whatever. And I would just say, pay attention, because chances are God's going to bring things. He'll bring, usually it's people, he'll bring someone right in front of you, and that will be your invitation. I don't think God is sitting around saying, wow, I hope that Lysa, or I hope that Craig, or I hope that Melissa thinks of that world problem today. I think it's more like, I'm going to bring that world problem front and center in their life and give them an opportunity to say yes to me. And whether that is pray about it and then that's the support that you give, or whether you pray about it and it leads you somewhere just like for me and Art and our family, it led us to adoption. But I don't think that we would have ever pursued that until the Lord brought it sort of front and center in our life. And so I think that's the way that God often works. You know, he will make us more aware of this issue or that issue or this person or that person. And the other thing I will say, Craig, I so appreciated whenever you would pray for me or for Art. You know, we were going through some really hard times the past 4 years, and you would often send a text or an email to say, Amy and I are praying for you today. I cannot tell you the miraculous work that God did to remind me that he sees me, that he hears me when I would get a text. Like, how in the world did it's almost like, how in the world did Craig and Amy know to pray for me today? But it's that Craig and Amy are connected to God, and I'm connected to God. And so when you do pray for people, I encourage you, let them know that you have prayed for them just like you did for me, because I'm sure you just thought, I'll just send a text really quick. But to me, it was a reminder. It became almost a lifeline when people would tell me, I prayed for you today. And there was always some significant thing going on that day that made me know, I cannot believe God stirred Craig and Amy to pray for me this day. And it's because God knew. God knew. And it was a way for him to remind me, Lysa, I'm here. I'm with you. I see you. And I've got an army of people out there praying for you. And it made such a difference.
That is so good. That's so crazy. I mean, it's crazy when that happens.
It's wonderful.
And isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. So not only do the prayers, but then let other people know. Tell people that you're praying for them.
That's right.
Because it brings such encouragement.
It does. And I know that we've talked a lot about these prayers being dangerous, you know, and I think sometimes to a woman, we might say, I don't really want to be dangerous. Like, I don't want to pray
play it
something
safe.
dangerous. That's the opposite of what. So I just want to always bring to mind to people that it's dangerous because maybe it's outside of our comfort zone. Yeah. So what feels dangerous can actually be the most life-giving thing that you might ever encounter in your prayer life. So I want to challenge you to do two things. Number one, I don't want this book that we've now gone through to get put on a shelf somewhere and you forget about it. I think this book needs to go someplace where it's one that we revisit, maybe every couple of months, maybe every year, but it's short, it's easy to read, it's full, power-packed full of challenging sentences. And I'm a big believer, it's not whole books that change people's lives, it's sentences within a book. And so I encourage you, pull this back out, and if you don't read the whole book again if you want to, but go through and read everything you highlighted and underlined and be reminded of all that you've learned. And then also, I want to challenge you, think of 3 other people in your life today who you know could really find amazing encouragement in this book, or people that are curious about God and prayer. And I would say write them a little note, send them this book, and give them the gift of all that you've received in this online Bible study.
And if your highlights are anything like mine, you're going to be reading the whole book again. So that's, my husband always says, let me check out the book. Do you highlight everything? It's like everything I really like. And that's pretty much the way it was.
So thank you for writing this book. This has been an amazing journey to really press in and feel challenged about my prayer life. And I know that other people feel
it was
the same
very
way.
personal for me.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Really good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Craig. It has been it's been fun, it's been informative, and you have just inspired us, and this study has been wonderful.
Well, I want to just say it again, that what you all do is so important, and you're impacting so many lives, and I really feel like what you have is special, because you're incredibly gifted, both as a leader, like, which I respect, and then as an author and someone who takes words, and words change lives.
Yeah, they do.
The truth changes life when you know the truth and when you live the truth.
Listen to him.
I think he actually
tends to make a pretty big difference. I'll do it, but
Okay, ready?
I'll do it officially in a minute. But I'm highlighting right now that what you do matters so much,
Thank you.
and what you all do matters as being a part of a community. And I don't like to just experience truth by myself, but when you experience it with other people.
Yes.
Even more so when you share it, there's something that brings power to it. So I can close it
You
unless
got
you want
this.
to say
Yeah,
something else.
solo.
You
Go
got
for
You want me
it.
to start? You want me to do it all?
You can do it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. It's so powerful. You know the truth will set you free. Here the Son says free is free. Indeed. So when you know the truth and you live the truth, help me out.
It
changes everything.